Welcome back to episode 79 of the S Gilmore Story, and this is entitled Gilmores Final Journey. We're looking here at one of the lithographs from the St. Louis newspapers of the day, and this news was really shocking to not just St. Louis, to America at the time. And one of the questions that was being asked over and over again was, how was the news going to be received by members of his band? And there's no doubt about it, they were in shock. Peculiar thing about these men was that they had been so long with Gilmore. Some of the quotes are incredible. My dear friend, my old comrade, says the article there, Monsieur Lefebvre, the saxophone soloist, to be taken so suddenly before he could tell us goodbye. Miles Kavanagh, the bassoon artist. No, it can't be. I and my friend Jacob Rupp have been with him 18 years and feel for him like a brother. Oh Lord, this is terrible. Michael Raffaello, a soloist. Again, this wasn't just those three men. This was the whole band. Gilmore had maintained a closeness to his band that probably wasn't usual at that stage, and definitely would never be seen again amongst other band leaders. Here's how the St. Louis Post-Dispatch featured it on the whole front page. Of course, St. Louis had welcomed the famous band of Gilmore's 100 to St. Louis only a few days literally previously, and this band had played in Manhattan Beach. It had played all throughout America and was a celebration of not just the brilliance of the band, but the fact that Gilmore's 100 band was paying homage to the 400th anniversary of America. Here's Gilmore's band in Madison Square Garden, I should say, in June of 1892. The body was received in Grand Central Station this morning. On the funeral train accompanying the body were Mrs. Gilmore, her daughter Miss Minnie Gilmore, the band committee of Lawrence O'Reilly, William Schultz and Herman Stillman. Moving on, the train was due at 7:45. Long before that, crowds of friends and musical associations and comrades had gathered at the depot. Directly down to the bottom behind her mother walked Miss Gilmore beside Edward O'Mahony, the intimate friend of the family. And here is Gilmore's coffin arriving at St Francis Xavier's Church in Manhattan, and his body has been brought up the steps into the church, and you see the crowds there outside, and the military waiting party there just below the lamp in the foreground. This is the interior of the church itself, magnificent edifice, and in fact in 2010 I arranged for a commemorative mass for Gilmore, which hadn't been done in quite a while. The sermon was interesting. Father Pardew's sermon was not long. In terms of eulogy, he spoke of the life and the life's work of the deceased musician, a loving father, a devoted husband, and while a great artist, a true and loyal friend. He had much to say of his practical charity, which had been manifest everywhere, especially to the Church of St Francis Xavier. Speaking of his death, the preacher said that although it had come suddenly, it had been I presume a release. And eventually his body, after the mass was interred in Cavalry Cemetery in Woodside in Queens. And back in 2010, we went there as well. And this would have been how Gilmore's coffin would have been basically laid to rest. And at the bottom, underneath those two wings, those two angels, you see Gilmore there between the two. Now, we'll come back to that in a second. But these wings, these angels were removed to where, I still do not know. So we know about the angels because of his daughter, Minnie Gilmore. And the book on the right, 3 of which I have in my collection, Songs from the Wings, here it is, published 1898. And she writes a tribute to her father. And it was heartfelt and so genuine. It was also very, very sad, but here are 2 verses from it halfway down. Mute flowers droop upon the grave, the silent grave that beds his sleep, where musing some celestial stave, twin angels vigil keep. His lute of life no more shall sing, for death has hushed its golden strain, but in my heart its echoes ring, immortal love's refrain. At the meeting of the Lotus Club, it's a club that still exists in New York. They followed, they passed the following resolutions, because Gilmore was a founding member of the Lotus Club. He was a founding member of a lot of clubs around New York, and this club, by the way, although for literary people, Gilmore loved writing. He loved the idea of words and so on. And here's another one. At a meeting of the members of the late Gilmore's military band, Charles Vrudenval was unanimously elected leader of that famous musical organization. They were wondering who was going to lead the band after Gilmore's passing. Back to 2010, here was the celebration that we had in St Francis Xavier, and the church pastor speaking from the altar of that church, and I proceeded to say a few words at the very end. Sadly, there were not many people there, but indeed, looking back at it at that stage, very, very few people knew of the existence of Gilmore. Thankfully, so many more do so now. And afterwards, we visited Gilmore's grave, and I placed the 2 lovely little flags to the United States and Ireland there with a wreath directly from Ballygar. There is Gilmore's plaque from between the 2 angels in the original plot. So I hope you've enjoyed, if that's the right way of describing this, I hope you've enjoyed Gilmore's final story of his life, I suppose. There'll be more next week. Please click subscribe and like, and recommend it to all of your friends, that particularly if they're interested in either American, Irish, or musical history. Thank you very much. Bye now.